everyone. So today I am here with Shyla, who has graciously accepted my invitation to do a video together. I am so excited to talk to her and get to know her story a little bit more. She goes through Tourette syndrome like a lot of my viewers out there. She also has a few other conditions that she's living with that we're going to get into. I am very excited for you guys to meet her and hear her story. She's a great advocate. She shares so much information about Tourette syndrome, so she's definitely somebody you want to get to know. So Shyla, thank you for doing this with me.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for wading through all the technical difficulties that we have had so far.
It's no problem.
So I just want to get started and just ask you how old you are now, and then just kind of go into when you started noticing your tics and when your diagnosis was.
All right, so right now I am 13 years old. I started noticing my tics, my own tics, at the age of 7. And my family started noticing my own tics about 10 years old.
Okay.
When I got my like motor tics in, they started to notice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So did you always tic with like all parts of your body? Did it start like somewhere specific?
It started with my coughing. I remember the specific day that it started, actually. It started in Bible study, and we were all gathered around for prayer, and I was like, what's the worst thing I can do in a quiet room? It's cough. And I was like, okay. And then I coughed. Yeah. And then I started to use that as a tic.
Okay.
And I couldn't stop.
Yeah. And so what age were you then diagnosed with Tourette syndrome?
I was diagnosed at 11.
Okay. And so was there a better, at 11 years old, obviously you're young and it can be hard to understand. For some people, it can make matters worse, knowing that they have this thing that's never going to go away and that there's no cure for. But for some people, it makes it easier because now they have an answer as to why they have to cough all the time or why they have to clear their throat. Or for me, I had to flick my head back all the time and I sniffed a lot when I was a kid. So for me, it was, I have this answer now. And so then that's just who I am. Do you think it's kind of similar for you when you got diagnosed?
Definitely it was easier after I got diagnosed. It's kind of like when you get your arm broken, and you get a cast on. Mm-hmm. You want to, like, everyone's gathering around that one kid with a cast on, and it's like, oh, that's the popular kid now. Let's go sign his cast. And you want to be that kid now. It's kind of the same thing. So at first you're kind of excited, and then you kind of realize, hey, this isn't so fun. Yeah, I have a disorder now. This is kind of weird.
Right. So with Tourette syndrome, a lot of people, obviously with Tourette syndrome watching, know, but a lot of people don't know that it's never just tics with Tourette's. As you're well aware, I'm sure there's so many other things that come along with it. What other comorbidities or anything, if there are any, that you have right now? Like for myself, I have OCD and anxiety, and those are two of the ones I struggle with the most. My intrusive thoughts are what I struggle with more than anything.
Yes. I definitely have a handful of comorbidities. I used to have some like signs of OCD when I was younger. When I was younger, we always kind of knew that something was different with me, my mom, my sister, everybody, because I had a lot of separation anxiety from my mother. Like if she went out to the post office, I would just scream and cry and just like it was the end of the world. She was never coming back for me. I was abandoned. But I would just the anxiety was so high. Yeah. And later on, I realized I got diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, which I am now medicated for, which is good. And I also have a lot of learning disabilities, including dysgraphia, which is when your handwriting isn't very good, and I don't hold my pencil the right way either, so I can't really. So my hand kind of hurts. So I had to retrain my brain since I've been doing it so many years that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So does that make school a lot harder for you then, like when you're in the classroom or afterwards or anything like that?
I'm actually homeschooled.
Okay.
So being homeschooled makes things easier, but only by a little. Mm-hmm. Because my mother gets who I am, and she knows where I struggle, but doing school kind of triggers my tics and triggers my anxiety. It triggers everything, and then it's like a domino effect.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
completely understand that one.
yeah.
I feel like we have a lot of domino effects when it comes to Tourette syndrome and our tics. They can lead into the smallest of tics can lead into the biggest of tic attacks, and it's kind of crazy when it happens like that sometimes.
Most definitely.
And I think that's kind of what some people often don't understand as well, because we can seem and be fine one minute and be completely unfine the next minute.
Yeah.
And I think that's just a struggle for a lot of people. So you mentioned that you were on medication for your anxiety. Is there a medication that you're on for Tourette syndrome, and are there any side effects or anything that you deal with it? Because a lot of people also don't know that there's just a long list of side effects for most medications that we even have the option of taking.
Yes, I am on Topamax or Topramate, and that seems to have been really helpful. I've been on it since December, and it's almost gotten rid of like all my tics, which is
good.
Super helpful for me.
That's awesome. I was on Topamax as well. I was on a pretty low dose first when I was in high school. I had to be on it my senior year of high school, and then my dosage got pretty high when I was in college, because obviously college is pretty stressful, and I worked and I went to college at the same time, and I was getting married at the same time as everything else. So as you can imagine, my Tourette syndrome was just probably the peak of it ever being in my life. So, but I know the Topamax, and I know the tingly fingers and toes that come along with Topamax.
I have tingly fingers.
Yes, I say that it's like when your fingers or your toes, your foot falls asleep and it's starting to come back.
Yes.
It's just not quite as
the worst feelings. It's like pins and needles.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's the best way to explain it to people, because unless you're living with it, you're not going to know what the side effect feels like. So that's good to know. It's always interesting and nice to know, like, not only people understanding and being on the same page or saying me too with Tourette syndrome, but it's kind of also nice to talk about, medications. There's a lot of people on medications in the world, but there's also not a lot of people on them. So those similarities, they're interesting.
And to get to the right medication, you just gotta like keep going. You gotta keep mixing different ones together.
Yeah, it's definitely a roller coaster ride with Tourette syndrome medications, because what some people don't realize is that the medications options we have, they're not for Tourette syndrome. They're for something completely else.
Yeah, Topamax is for seizures. And the one I was on before, which wasn't doing anything, was for ADHD.
Okay.
So they're just seeing that it would help Tourette's.
Right. And I switched my medications at one point. When I was in college, instead of continuously upping my dose, I wanted to try something different. And unfortunately, I tried something different. I can't remember the name of it. You think I would remember, but it started giving me panic attacks. So I had to go back to my Topamax and just increase the dosage by quite a bit. But that's the kind of things that obviously we deal with Tourette syndrome. Kind of roll with the punches and what's coming next. So as you're one of my younger viewers, I definitely want to ask your advice to other younger people your age, around your age, of what you would tell them if you're finding out that they're getting diagnosed with Tourette syndrome, or like what would you tell them if they tell you, like, I'm scared, like this is never going to go away, I hate this, blah, 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 because sometimes it can be so hard to pull yourself out of that negativity around it. So what would you say to somebody like talking to you, like feeling that way in that beginning stage of diagnosis?
I'd probably say that this isn't going to last forever. And that tics wax and wane. You could have one tic one day, and then like in a few months from now, that couldn't be your tic anymore. So yeah, I would probably say, this isn't going to last forever. You're not going to feel like this forever. So this feeling is temporary.
So how would you help somebody, or not help somebody? What would you say to somebody that is afraid to talk about their Tourette syndrome? I know I tried my best to give advice to people, obviously my age and younger, when they ask me, but I think the age gap is such an important thing here, and that could be very helpful. So what would you say for like younger people finding out they're diagnosed and they're afraid to talk about it, but they want to?
I'd say just do it. Honestly. I tried to go I tried to go so long without talking about it. And it didn't work for me. I think it's just so much easier if people know. And you don't have to hold it in anymore. You don't have to get anxiety going places. Honestly, I think it's just easier if people know.
Yeah. Speaking of that, what made you, or when did you know you wanted to start telling people, and not only telling people, but on a broader spectrum with your videos and your posts and everything? Like what made you want to start doing that?
So last summer or I think last winter, no, it was last fall. Last fall, I went through like a little bit of a bump in my first depressive episode I've ever had. And I was like, all the moral questions you could possibly ask yourself. I was like, what is my purpose? I don't really have a purpose, And then finally in the summertime, I begged my mother to let me have social media, and she was like, okay, you can have Instagram. And she gave me Instagram, and I decided to make Simply Tourette's. And I was like, this is going to be my purpose. I'm going to invest my time into this. Because I cannot sit in my room and just sit here wasting away thinking and asking myself. I cannot sit here alone with my own thoughts any longer. So I started investing my time into that, and then it kind of grew from like a little blog to like me editing photos, and then I did like a little face reveal. And then I decided that I wanted to do YouTube as well to go along with it. And now here I am.
Well, that's really awesome. That's crazy inspiring that you felt that way, that you feel that way at such a young age, and that you wanted to find your purpose so young, and that it's Tourette syndrome that you feel is your purpose. And I gotta say, like, based on your posts and everything, I think you're absolutely correct. Your advocacy and everything that you're doing is really awesome, and it's going to be helping a lot of people.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. I think a lot of people out there that are just starting their advocacy journeys, myself included when I started, and still to this day, you start to wonder like why I'm even doing this, because we all get to a point where we're like, does anybody even care, or are they even paying attention? Right. But I think it's so important that we keep going, because obviously so many people need so much more awareness out there. All of us need the awareness out there, because so many people still don't know what Tourette syndrome really is. They think all we do is swear, when some of us just sometimes swear.
It's always annoying.
Yeah, and then some of us don't at all. Like when people ask me if I swear all the time when I have Tourette syndrome, it's really funny because it'll be people that have been around me for months. And then they finally find out I have Tourette syndrome, and they're like, so you swear all the time? And I'm like, have you heard me do it yet?
You've never heard me do this. I got one girl ask me if it was contagious.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
She wasn't being mean. She was good-hearted. She was just like, I was like, no.
Yeah, and that's another reason, like even the good-hearted questions, because obviously I always take them like with a grain of salt. Like I don't put it against people unless they are just being flat out rude, and that I deal with that on a different, depends on how I'm feeling that day on how I deal with that.
Oh yeah.
But that just goes to show you too how much more awareness does need to happen because of questions like that. Even when they're coming from a good place, that just still means that so many people don't know what it is. And it's interesting to see how many. For me, it's interesting to see how many adults don't know, because for me, going to school, it was weird for me because I became the teacher in a sense, because I had to teach them what Tourette syndrome was. Here was this teacher who was supposed to know everything to be able to show me about.
Right.
And I had to turn around and teach them about in my world, such a huge.
And it's so common too, like 1 in 100 kids.
Yeah.
Like people should know this stuff.
Yes, I agree. And I think it should be taught me personally, I think it should be taught in health classes at least.
Yeah.
I think it at least needs to be brought up. You don't have to spend a semester on it.
You don't have to spend like a whole semester studying this specific thing, but you should at least know the basics of it.
Right, because you never know when a student's going to be in contact with somebody like that.
Right.
aside from medication and all of that fun stuff, what helps you get into a zone where you just feel like you don't have Tourette syndrome anymore, if anything?
Definitely drawing and painting. I used to draw a lot when I was younger, but now I've gotten more into painting. And I've like collected all the expensive paint stuff and I'm very happy about it. But yes, most definitely painting and drawing. Just getting creative in general, it just stops my tics almost completely dead in their tracks. So yeah.
That's always good to hear. I always love hearing that people have something like that. I know a lot of people struggle to find that area where it just stops for a little bit and gives them a break, because obviously we don't know what our body's going to do ever. So it can be very difficult to even want to try something new, because in our minds we're so used to, well, I'm just going to take anyway. And so I think some people don't want to try. And so I think that's why I think it's important to keep asking that question to show the spectrum of different things that help people. So I guess that's gonna wrap everything up. I want to thank you so much for doing this. Thank you for bearing with me.
Thank you for having me.
I know a lot of people watching probably don't realize, but we had a lot of technical issues with this. So thank you for that. And if there's anything that you want to share with everyone, do you want to share where they can find your advocacy videos or anything like that, go right ahead. If you want to share that information on where they can find that at, like your URL for YouTube or your Instagram handle, that kind of thing.
My Instagram handle is simply.tourettes and my YouTube is simply Tourettes. So you can find me there.
All right, perfect. I hope a lot of people follow Shylah here. She is, like I said in the beginning, she is a great advocate out there. We have a lot more advocates growing and emerging throughout, from all over. So she's another really good one to follow. So make sure you go ahead and find her and keep learning more about Tourette syndrome. And again, thank you so much. And that's all we got for today.